So welcome to another unboxing video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we're taking a look at a slightly older game called Slouch Hats and Eggshells. This is a game put out by Legion Wargames in 2011. And it covers Operation Exporter, which was the Allied invasion of Syria and Lebanon, 1941. So, designed by Vance von Barres, we played a couple of his games, always had a good time with them. This is a two-player World War II hex encounter game. The difference being is that it is a topic that we have definitely not played. And from my understanding, I believe that the conflict itself ended up being kind of one-sided. Now, I could be wrong about that, but from my general layman's understanding, that's the case. And so, it's a lot of a few Germans, Vichy France, defending this territory, and it was hit by a lot of Free French and Australians and Commonwealth troops. And weirdly enough, I actually have the Reluctant Enemies, which is the OCS version of this game. And I've not played either of them, so maybe I'll play both and compare the two. But this is... I enjoy Legion's War Games. This is one of their older ones, and it's a topic that I think is one that, because we've not played, is something that's interesting to me. And I have a penchant for, North Africa, Middle East, World War II games. I think there's something interesting in there, just from what you get. So let's take a quick look. We do have a bag of bags, including a singular D6. And then we've got everything else that's in here. So we got a rule book, which looks like it is good old-fashioned, fairly large font size. But it is, well, those are designer notes and an example of play with some scenarios. 24-ish pages. That's 24 pages of rules. And that looks not a ton of diagrams. That's a lot of rules. So, rulebook. These are sealed. So we've got a sheet and a half of counters. Some of those look like interesting admin counters. And a map. Alright, so we've got a special events chart, an Allied special events chart, let me say that. This folds out. Allied special events chart. Looks like a whole bunch of different bits and pieces on there. Replace. Okay, that's interesting. I guess these are all the special events that can take place. And I think that those might correspond to these counters here. I'm not 100% positive on that. Terrain effects chart that's just text. Hopefully they print the pictures on the map, or it's obvious. Movement eligibility, combat results table, bombard table, naval transport table, bomber effectiveness, artillery fire support, and beyond. So we've got that single-sided. This is actually a kind of matte paper. It's a heavy, very heavy paper or light card. So, counter information. We've got counter breakdown. This is single-sided. Play aid, different play aid markers. Yeah, and those random event shits, which are dual-sided. Allied setup card. This is at start for scenarios 1 and 2. We have an Axis setup card for allies. For Axis setup card for at start scenarios 1 and 2. Yeah, and then some reinforcements for the different scenarios as well. Extended example of play. Single-sided, so I'm hoping. Read the rules once, play off of this. Very much hoping that that's the case. And then we have another of those bifolds. This is for the Axis player. This is all the Axis events. And then on the inside it's that same TEC, CRT, and all that. So, that's nice. Let's have a crack at these without ruining this, if possible. Let's see. Let me get a knife. Okay, so here's the counters. So, these were the, and these are single-sided. These are those random event chits. These are just falling off of this sprue. These are cut struck very nicely. That's what they say. I will probably use a corner rounder on these just because I'm a psychopath, but you don't need to. Those fell out of the sprue like no one's business. That was fairly nice. So there's a bunch of those, and there's a few other different markers down there that I'm not quite sure what they are. So we've got half sheet of those, very large markers. And see, I'm just touching these and they're falling off. So be careful with these. So here's the units that have their standardized military symbols on them. So we have a bunch of motorized infantry, regular infantry down here, some cav units, and then we've got some bombers. We've got Bristol Blenheims, Wellingtons, and then a mixed group, some motor pools, naval transport, some supply markers. A nice little tank here. Is this supposed to be a Valentine? I don't know what that's supposed to be. I'm not going to pretend to know. Then over here we've got our Vichy French units. And then I'm not going to pretend to know what those are, if they're supposed to be locals or Germans. We definitely have some Germans though. Junkers 88s, 288th Brandenburg Division. Yeah, there's some Leia units as well. So we do have a number of different Axis units, but this is fairly low counter density, and I'm hoping it's not unreasonable. But yeah, these are just falling out of this very nicely. And I don't know if you can tell. Let me hold these up real quick. So the reason that these are falling out is because they are extremely well struck, but they have the world's smallest center nubs on them. That is microscopic and won't affect clipping or play in any way. So I'm pretty happy about that, all things considered. So those are the counters. Let's put those in here, keep those safe. And the last thing we've got is the map. And we've got ourselves a nice, extremely crisp hex and counter map. So the hex overlay is very bold, and you've got all the different hex numbers on all the hexes. But there is no mistaking what is what in these. I do like a map that has this level of like distinction between things, where there's absolutely zero mistake of which elevation these are at. Is it the plain, light brown, kind of orange tan, and then there's dark brown. Like everything is extremely crisp and clear. We've got some hex edge terrain obviously going on here. Various different trails and minor roads and main roads down here. A very clear map is something that is underrated, and this definitely has that. Looks like we've got our port holding capacities as well, and then a bunch of holding boxes. The Middle East holding box over there, some transport boxes. We've got a Greece box up here as well, and then we've got the Iraq holding box, and then our supply units available in a victory point schedule as well. So this is, but the play space, if you think about the counters, really, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16, 20, 32, not many, 32, 48 odd. If you had, I don't even think it was that. If you had every single Axis unit, there's a few more down there. You're looking at like 50 units, maybe 52. If you had everything on the board, which is probably very unlikely. Like, this is the play space. It's not very big, and like a lot of those, Desert War style games, I'm sure there'll be heavy concentrations, and you'll have large swathes of nothing. It's not like an East Front game where you've got this big long line. It may be, but I would be surprised by that. So, a small play space. I'm hoping that this plays, very reasonably as well. Do they have a time on here? Playtime 4 to 6 hours. That's a single session, which that is pretty good to me. If I could play this game and it took me about 4 hours at most, I think that'd be fun. We'll see if it's solitaire friendly. This one says that it is like a medium to high. Like, it's not designed solo, but probably no reason you couldn't push them around. I don't think there's any hidden information that I could see or glean. So, I'm very interested in this, from a topical standpoint, but also Legion makes good games, Vance von Boris makes good games. We've got ourselves a nice hex encounter about something that I don't know that much about. So, I'm very interested to play this, and we'll let you know how it is. Appreciate you tuning in. I've been Alexander for theplayersaid.com.